Hello and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. My name is Joe Franco and we are on episode number 57. So as you know, most of the times when I do these podcasts, they are driven somehow, either by someone asking me a question, something on social media, something that's been on my mind, and I typically just bang it out with very little notes. So this one, I did take a little bit more notes because, again, this podcast was driven by a question that I had. And as you see in the title, it's Competition Guide 101, a comprehensive insight of what to expect when competing in a physique event. So this one particularly is going to be geared towards if you've never competed, or on the flip side, if you have competed, what you should be looking for in a contest. And I'm going to go over from the moment to signing up, to the weeks leading up to the contest, to the contest day, and to leaving. Okay, so it's going to be a guideline, what to expect from, I would at least like to say, a promoter that is on the ball, that's going to be there for you. Obviously, I'm not going to be going into diet and exercise. I mean, I've talked about that before and will continue to do so. But this one in particular is about the process. So you know what to expect, what questions to ask, how to be prepared and to be comfortable into the situation. So again, one of the reasons why I think the shows that I put on are good is not necessarily the show day itself, but is allowing the competitor an open door to ask you questions and to answer their questions immediately. Because as you know, most time when people compete, they're nervous, they're stressed, whatever, the diet, it's all human nature, and I get it. But if you can make the situation more comfortable for them, they're going to have a better time. And that's what it comes down to, a promoter. It's making it comfortable, having them have a good time, and then wanting them to come back. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, that's promotion to me, at least. What my focus has been over the last 15 years doing this for the OCB is giving it a fun atmosphere, a relaxed atmosphere, and a positive experience. So, again, step by step, I did take some notes on this one because often, I may say something, I listen, I'm like, oh, shoot, but, I'll publish it and post it up on my podcast page regardless, because I think, it's sometimes just saying things and rather being planned is a better way of going about it. But I did take a few notes. So again, this is really geared towards those who are competing for the first time or maybe want to get back into it, or looking for a show that does provide, or how to look for a show. I mean, I did do a podcast, I don't know, a year or so ago. And again, look at the library because there's well over 50, going over the 4 things or so, a number of things to look for when competing, like what things you need to look for. This is going over the process. Okay, so it's a little bit different. So, you take the person, all right? I'm going to pick a name. Let's say John is competing for the first time. Or for you women out there, you can say Jane. So you've picked a contest, obviously. The first thing that you're going to do is sign up, right? So you want to make sure that entry form does have the proper information, so you don't have to second guess. So you see all the details of the contest, from the location, obviously the date, maybe how the show's formatted, that's something that always comes up. All the information when it comes to the tickets, the entry, the deadlines, all the categories, classes, crossovers, eligibility, all those little things, banned substance list. If the contest is listing all these things, then in the background it's going to be well prepared. I mean, and then even onto the services, when it comes to tanning, hair and makeup, the polygraph setting up, the schedule for that. Because again, the more information that the first time competitor has, the more comfortable they're going to be, because it's going to be right in front of them, and they can always refer back to that entry form, even before they sign up, when they're scoping it out and checking it out. So all those little details to me are super important. So when you look for a show, whether it's on the East Coast or West Coast, a different country, whatever, if that entry form has all that information, it should be able to answer questions that you may already have, okay? Now, typically, again, at least for me, because I like to do this, is that once you do sign up, a matter of a couple of hours, I will then reply back with a thank you email, restating some of those key points that you should be taking care of in scheduling. Thanking the competitor for joining my competition, letting them know they can ask any questions. And then I'll have the reminder about getting the OCB membership, signing up for your polygraph. Here are the sponsors if you want to take advantage of the services, and a couple of little things, little details about the show day itself. So again, it's an email to remind them, you want to take care of these things, put them on your list, banging it out. So they're all super, super important. Now, what I am going to say is that if you have a coach and the coach wants to take full control, I would say don't let them, because sometimes the coach may get caught up into other clients or do whatever, or don't let that coach sign you up. You want to be responsible. You want to take the initiative. And then you can share with the coach, the sign-up form, and you can pick the right divisions or classes and whatnot. But do not let them take the reins, okay? No matter how controlling they may be or how nervous you may be, you want them to control. You want to be in control, meaning being in touch with the promoter of the contest. Because sometimes I've seen it. You see these coaches, they may wait too long, and oh shoot, I forgot to sign you up. Unfortunately, if you sign up now, you got to pay additional $50 or whatever the late fee may be. And the reason why people have these late fees is quite simple. All the work is going into organizing, and then it's just not fair because you sign up too late. Then they got to reorganize, certain forms and make sure you get your polygraph and be on top of you for this and that, and it becomes a hassle. So that leads to my next point, because I'll get this question a lot, is like, when do I sign up for a show? When's the best time? I mean, I've seen it, I have a show in May, it's December, and I have a few signups already. Now, usually those people that sign up 6 months in advance typically are setting that goal to keep their habits and, to keep them motivated throughout the new year and all that. I respect that, But I'm a stat person, and you'll see the majority of the signups come in between 3 weeks out from the contest to 6 weeks out. That's like the sweet spot. And if you're unsure, or if you are waiting to have more funds, you pick your time, obviously. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if someone on average were to ask me, when do I sign up? I said, look, and now this is what I would tell them right away, is that look at the entry form, see what's required of that particular contest as far as memberships, polygraphs, all the other details, and sign up about a month out. Okay, because 99% of the time you're going to avoid any late fee, and a lot of these contests, including myself, I will have a cutoff date either 7 or 10 days out, and I do that for selfish reasons, but it turns into making the event better. So then I can organize and relax and put everything together. So instead of getting entries, a day or two and then throwing them in, and I don't want to deal with that, because again, to my defense, my entry forms for the next year are out. So there's no excuse for someone to sign up late. But going back to my point, sign up about a month out. If you need to be held more accountable, if you're that type of person, then sign up about 3 months out. But do not wait till the last minute, because the process becomes more crazy, and do not let your coach take over. You want to have responsibility. Now, the few appointments that you need to take care of. And again, I'm talking about firsthand experience. Polygraph, again, I mean, some people will sign up for the polygraph before they actually sign up for the contest so they can pick the time, and I get it. But often the case is, picking the time, and if you may not make that particular day, that particular time, it doesn't matter. You just need to get in line. But the other service, when it comes to the tanning, and I know this firsthand because my wife tans all my shows and she does a bunch of other promoter shows, scheduling that early also, because those times fill up. Then when you may reach out to the tanner, they may throw you in where they only have the availability, and it may not fit with your schedule for that particular day as far as travel. So those are the main few points that I wanted to go over with the entry form: setting up your appointments on time, signing up when it's appropriate for you and not waiting to the last minute. All are super important keys when it comes to, competing for the first time and to just getting organized. Okay, that's part of the main competitor guide that I wanted to talk about. Now, throughout the process, and as time goes on, so let's say you sign up, a month out from the show. I, again, as a promoter, will typically about 2 to 3 weeks out send her a refresher, a reminder type email, and just to go over the certain things, what we're looking for as far as, usually around that time period, I'll have an idea of like what time this class will go on, or if it's going to be a split show, men in the morning, women in the afternoon, whatever the format may be. And I like to give that information to the competitors so they're more prepared on, when they can tell their friends and family to arrive. And I'll have that information. Typically, when the show closes, you will get the order of events. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So during that time after you sign up, usually the promoter should send a reminder of, hey guys, hope your training and prep's going great. Be sure to sign up for your polygraph, send your membership in. If you are provided the opportunity to do a free posing routine because you're a bodybuilder, classic physique, women's physique, send your music in so everything can get organized. So those are also things on your checklist that a promoter, or at least a good one, will remind you to do. Now, I've had clients do shows where they don't hear from the promoter at all until like a day or two before. And they said, Joe, what should I do? Because I know you're asking me for the order. You can bug the promoter, be sure to bug them because you're paying good money to enter their event. And if you have questions, do not hesitate. But on the flip side of that, if a promoter sends you an email, save it. Read it thoroughly. Because in today's day and age, when it comes to, everything quick and instant and all that stuff, you still need to read all the little details because 99% of the time your questions will be will be answered through the promoter's emails. Because I've been doing this so long, I've learned what the typical questions are from first-time competitors or novices, and I try to get ahead of that. I'm proactive in a way where I'll answer their questions. So if they read through all my emails, and I specifically say, save them, put them in a folder, so you can go back when you do have the time to read, and your questions will be answered. But still, and it's just because, if I have 100 people sign up for a contest, it's hard to answer all the questions. But I still encourage, if you have specific questions, hit me up. So you'll see, when it comes to all the details will first be laid out on that entry form, followed up by an email that I'll remind the competitors to save, then do a follow-up. So then as time gets closer, like I gave you a tease, about a week out from the show, I will personally give another email going over the order of events, what the expediters will do for you, make sure your music in, another review, but also greater details about, where's the venue as far as the setup, where are you going to be hanging out, all those little things. Again, because as a competitor myself, having that information it makes it worry-free, so you don't have to sweat the small stuff. So we move forward. Now we're on the day before the event. Sometimes people need to schedule their traveling, if they're working or the day before or the day of. And that is something that you do want to plan ahead because, again, for the OCB, the two main appointments to be taken care of the day before is taking your polygraph and getting your tan. I always suggest people to take the polygraph, schedule that first before your tan, only because when you're being polygraphed, you might be sweating more or you're strapped up with the finger things, the things across the chest. And, you don't want to be sweating that tan off that you spent good money on to make nice and, make yourself, look better. So if you can and you have the opportunity, schedule your polygraph before your tan. And then there's some promoters that will have, check-ins the night before where they will give you the competition numbers, a goodie bag or whatever, like to meet and greet you. And that's great. I used to do that, but now since I've learned that it's not really necessary, and I'm going to go over the show day itself in a couple minutes here, but those little things you need to plan out your schedule so you give yourself enough time, take the day off, leave really early to go to the site where, all these appointments are happening at the host hotel. Oh, that's another thing, a very important thing, the host hotel. I mean, if you're within 30 minutes of, or even an hour, and you want to make the trip back and forth and not to stay the night of, that's fine. But competitions will set up a discounted rate for you to stay at the hotel because that's where all the appointments are at. And it's within usually, 2 to 5 miles from the actual venue itself. So that's why you want to stay there. That's why you also want to book that on time. Because if you wait too long, the code will go away. And the promoter, believe it or not, has no control over that. And that's happened to me a number of times. This year specifically, the hotel group rate will book up, or people are like, hey, Joe, now they're charging $150 instead of $120 for the night. Is there anything you can do? Well, I've reached out to the hotel manager. They're like, no, that was the cutoff date. So you got to also, when you sign up for the show, best to reach out to the hotel, take care of that if you want to stay overnight. So that day of, proper planning when it comes to travel, take care of those appointments. So again, I don't do, check-ins, but what I will do is have a competitor meeting. And, most promoters, I still believe, do that. And that is for me. And again, that will be all in the information when you sign up for my event or most people's events. They'll say, all right, competitor meeting at 9:00. There's some promoters that don't do competitor meetings anymore and only do check-ins the night before so you can get your stuff and they get to meet you one-on-one. But I like having that meeting that takes maybe 10-15 minutes in the morning. And typically it will be like an hour before the actual contests start. So people have that time so they can plan everything out the morning of, so they don't have to miss it. Now, sometimes the women may be getting their hair and their makeup, and, we make arrangements, obviously, because it's your day. So the competitor meeting is typically 10 to 15 minutes long. I just go over some things, reminders, talk about the expediters, which are the people that are backstage organizing and getting you in order. And I've gone over this before in podcasts. I talk about this in my, classes all the time, posting classes, where they take over. Here's a little secret. Once the show starts, the promoter's done. Obviously, if there's issues or problems or anything going on, we take care of that. But 99% of the time, I'm watching the event so I can monitor the judges and see how things are going. But a good promoter will have trustworthy people, and those people that are helping out are doing it because they have the love of the sport. So let me just be clear with that. They're there because of their time is something that they want to do and give back. Either they have a relationship with the promoter or the organization and they love helping. So That's something that you got to realize. So the expediters are the ones that will call out your number and your category. And again, when I send out that last email, I discuss the expediters and about the timing of how to be on stage. And, we give you enough time to get ready in the pump up section and then on deck and all, the whole carousel of being on stage. So that is something that if you're unsure of, if the promoter provides, ask them. It's a great question to ask. So the expediters are super important. Obviously, the judges are super important because you want to have a good judging panel. I can do a whole podcast about that, but I'm not. But typically the judges, hopefully you'll find a wide range of people, ages, male, female, black, white, Asian, whatever. You get the idea because that's what they're going to be seeing on stage. So that's something that, you may see and you'd be like, hey, if it's all 30-year-old white dudes and you're like, maybe that's not a diverse panel, but having a diverse panel to me is something I take pride in, and I try to provide that. Sometimes people may not be able to judge, so you got to do what you can. But they're all qualified judges who have pro card status in one organization or another, or have been judging for many, many years, and they just do a really good job. So you're on stage, all right? And again, I've talked about this before in previous podcasts. You do your posing, you listen to the head judge, they take you through, yada, yada. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that. Your biggest job when you're on stage is listen to that head judge and to the commands of doing the quarter turns, your poses for your division, smile, have fun, show off your stuff, obviously, because that goes a long way. The reflection of you smiling and having a good time, because you may come across these judges again in a future show and they remember everything. They're like, oh my God, I remember her because she had such great presentation, or I remember him because he looked miserable on stage and his posing sucked, and hopefully he improved. So your presentation, your confidence are super important on stage. And again, I talked about this in my posing podcast. You could search that one up, the details that I go over posing. So all that's out there already for you. Once you exit the stage, again, you can't go too far. Well, let me just, again, backtrack a little bit. That promoter, or at least I give all the competitors the order of events, not so that you can check and see who you're competing against, but you can see the order and time it. Because if the event starts at 10:30 and you're doing bodybuilding and you do the math, with the numbers that I give the actual competitor, you can estimate probably within 20 minutes on when you're going to be on stage. So if I'm doing men's bodybuilding open, the show starts at 10:30, and I look at the list, I may say, you know what, I'm probably going to go on between 11 and 11:30, say. Same thing with the women. If the women's portion starts at 2 and you're doing figure novice, if by the order of events, well, I'm going to be on at 2 o'clock. So you want to be prepared, be on time, be ready, so these expediters don't have to go looking for you. Because I've seen that. It's happened probably half a dozen times when people are nowhere to be found and they're not on stage. So the same thing, if you're doing multiple categories, say you're doing figure novice and open, there could be a gap between the two because there could be multiple height classes for each. So say I'm doing figure novice. I go on stage, boom. Then you got to wait to get through figure short, maybe a master's, and then before open figure comes on stage for the short category. So it could be like a 20-minute, 30-minute gap. Please do not go too far if there's a gap between your two classes, okay? You want to be prepared to get right back on stage or stay close within the earshot so you can hear them yell out, hey, competitor number 3, come on, get in line, and you listen. So again, it's all about listening, but the promoter should give you all that information to prepare you about the timing and everything. So it's not that big of a deal. Once the show is over, okay, and again, this is something that I stress to everyone, is that typically for my events, I don't like people coming up to the judges' table because they spent all day looking at physiques, they do take notes, they do take feedback, but it's best provided letting things cool down for a couple of days, and then you can reach out to them for the necessary feedback. And if you're a client of mine listening, or if you, I might have mentioned this before, you got to take the feedback with a grain of salt, because the bottom line is they don't know where you started to what you look like right then and there. They're judging you for the criteria and what they see on stage. Okay. Now, obviously, if you need, posing, or your suit didn't look right, or bad makeup, or maybe you really had a lagging muscle group, or you just need more conditioning. I mean, a lot of it is the same feedback. I'm going to be honest with you. But if it makes you feel better, if it's going to motivate you to improve, or something that you really didn't see or your coach didn't, that's fine. But the point that I'm getting at is, don't go bum rushing the table. I saw that a couple of times where as soon as their class was done and given their trophy, and the men's portion was still going on, guys will come running down while they're trying to, I want to. I'm like, no, guys, back, relax a little bit. They're still working here, judging other categories, even though, we're having a 5-minute break. They're using that to go to the bathroom, grab something to eat, and then they're back to work. Because emotion does play a role if you're not happy with your, placement. I understand that, but it's best to cool down. Let the judges not cool down, but let them gather their thoughts. You email them. And typically how I do it is that the competitor will email me, hey, Joe, thanks for the show, but can I have the emails judges so I can get feedback? And then I'll send you all the emails to the judges. You supply them a picture, ask them whatever questions, and they get back to you. But you got to understand that sometimes they have full jobs, families, careers, and everything. They might not get back to you as fast as I would, because this is what I do for a living, where others may have other things going on in their lives, and they'll get back to you eventually. And if they don't, you tell me, and I'll reach out to them and, hey, get back to this person, please, because you're making me look bad. So that is the end of the show. And, the one topic that is also important, where it's not, it's part of the process and part of the competition day, and it's something that I bring up in an email, something that I bring up in my competitors meeting, is to clean up after yourself. Because when I'm sitting there, wrapping the show up, everyone's leaving, I'm cleaning up, organizing all the stuff that I did use to set up, you'll find trash. I mean, there's no lack of trash cans in most of these venues. So I repetitively try to tell people, be respectful of the venue. I mean, if you were at home, you wouldn't leave jars of peanut butter and open things of rice cakes in the corner of your floor or your hallway, would you? So why would you do that there? And not only it takes away from my time from, a long day and just, want to wrap things up and go home and relax, it sets a bad example, because the people who run the venue that help clean up see that. They may say, you know what, we don't want you back. And I've, over all the years of promoting, I have seen that. People lose their venues because people simply don't clean up after themselves. It takes nothing but 5 seconds to do so. Okay? Clean up after yourself. And a lot of times with the tan, and people use the bathroom, may leave a ring or a smudge on the toilet seat, clean up after yourself. All right? It's that simple. I mean, just because you may not go back there again and you don't care, well, guess what? Someone else may want to go back and use that venue, and you're robbing the chance of other competitors to use a great venue. So that's my little rant on just cleaning up after yourself. So this one has been a little bit longer than anticipated, and I didn't even look at my notes. So let me look at my notes real quick here to see if I left out anything. And of course, if you have questions about this at all, reach out to me, fitfranco@verizon.net. Hit me up at all on any of the social media platforms, and I'll be glad, to answer your questions. So, talked about the staff. Yeah, I think I reached and covered just about everything, guys. So hopefully this one's been helpful. Whereas if you're a first-time competitor, or if you want to, you haven't competed in a while and the process has changed, these are some of the things to look for in a good show, but also to let you know that promoters have your back. We want you to be happy, where you tell your friends you have a good experience, you come back and compete, or you want to support the organization because it was such a good vibe and you had a good day. And if you had bad experiences, we also as promoters want to learn, because that's how we learn. Feedback doesn't always have to be great. Negative feedback I've gotten over the years, and I'm like, oh, they had a point. You know what? Let me take that into consideration, and maybe I'll make that tweak, for next time. Because it's, our goal is to always get better and always learn. So I'm going to wrap this one up for sure. Thank you for listening. If you think this was useful or any of my other podcasts, please share on any type of social media platform. Tag me so I know you're sharing, because I'm just here to try to spread as much information, positive stuff around. So guys, I'll talk to you next time.